Hi, I'm Bonnie Barker with BonnieBayCrochet.com, and to continue celebrating National Crochet Month, this is March 2019, I'm going to show you how to make a project out of this book, Celtic Cable Crochet. This is the second book that I've had published with Interweave Press, and it has 18 projects in there should you care to take a look at it online. I'll put the links below. Okay, so what project are we going to do? We're going to do the project called Emerald Celtic Weave Infinity Scarf, but rather than show you the picture there, I just wanted to show you the scarf that I'm wearing now. It is an infinity scarf. It's all attached, and this is my favorite go-to scarf for getting dressed and ready to go out the door. It's just been my favorite for a few years, and as you can see, the yarn has worn extremely well. The original yarn that I used for this was by a company called Sweet Georgia Yarn, and I'll try to put the link down there in the below if you want to check out that yarn as well. But quite honestly, any fingering weight yarn that you have on hand will probably do just fine for this. For the demonstration purposes, I'm going to be using Lydia yarn. This is a yarn that I've really come to know and love. I've met the woman who's the indie dyer for this. I'm not getting any financial benefit for letting you know about this, just to let you know, but this is just something that I really enjoy working with. This is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. It's a really nice yarn, and it does yield a lot of really nice drape, just like the one that I'm wearing here. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Also, you're going to need to get a size G crochet hook, or whatever you would like whatever you require to make gauge. Although gauge is not terribly important with this particular project. And you're going to also want to get a yarn needle. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to begin with a slip knot. And make sure that you leave a nice little thread here so that you can weave this in when we get done with the scarf. Now we are going to chain 31. I'm going to go ahead and do my 31 chains. Okay, now that I have my chains, 31, we're going to start by working a double crochet in the third chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, the third chain from the hook. We're going to work a double crochet, and we're going to work a double crochet in each chain across. And I know this is a lot smaller yarn to see, but I am just working in one side of that of the chain, just one side of the V. Okay, so go ahead and work those all the way across. When you finish, you should have a total of 29 double crochets. After completing row 1, this is what you should have. You should have 29 double crochets plus the turning chain. Now we're going to turn to start row number 2. We're going to chain 3. Okay, to start, we are going to not use this stitch as we do the Celtic weave. So we're going to skip that first stitch, and then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches as well. I've wrapped my hook twice because we're going to do a front post treble crochet around the next stitch. And for this, the stitch actually goes in, kind of goes around the body of the stitch like you're giving it a belt, and then you pull up a loop to complete that front post treble. Pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'll do that again slowly. We wrap the hook 2 times, and to go around the next stitch as well, the hook is going to go around the entire stitch like you're giving it a belt, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we've made 2 of these. Okay, now working in front of these 2 stitches, we are going to go back and make work a front post treble crochet around the second and the third stitch. Notice I am not going to work in this end stitch. Okay, wrap the hook twice. I'm going to go back to the second of the 3 stitches that were skipped, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, wrap the hook 2 more times, and the next stitch we're going to also front post treble, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that's always tricky starting because you're skipping this stitch plus 2 more. Now for the rest of the way across, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and then we're going to front post treble in the next 2 stitches. And by the way, this is just called the Celtic weave stitch that we are working. And as I said before, we're going to work in front of these 2 stitches, and we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. We're going to do this all the way across the row until we get to the end. I'll do a couple more with you because this may be the first time some of you have seen this stitch. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches. These are all front post treble crochets that I'm working for this section. Working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in those 2 stitches that we just skipped. Skip the next 2 stitches and then front post treble in the next 2. This stitch, for those of you who are interested in the multiple, is a multiple of 4. Of course, that can vary depending on how you begin and end each row. But let's go ahead and stop right there and take a look at what we have. So we have like these 4 stitches together with these little X's, these Celtic weave X's. You should go ahead and finish this across. You should have 7 of these, and then I'll show you what to do at the end. When you come to the end of the row, we are going to work a double crochet in this chain space. Just go ahead and work in that entire big hole. You don't have to single out a single thread of the chain. Just go ahead and put that double crochet right there in the entire chain, and this is what you should have after row 1. Now some of you may think, well, I want my scarf to be wider than this. Well, this scarf is not done. Obviously we just started, but this is not the total width. We are actually going to add about 1 inch or more on each side of this once we work the rounds of ribbing once this scarf is finished. But just wanted to be clear about that. This is not the final width of the scarf. It will be wider. Okay, so now we're ready to begin row 3. We're going to chain 3. And again, we are not going to work in this last stitch, which is actually the first stitch now. We're not going to work in this stitch. Instead, we're going to jump right into the backside facing row that you're going to work with this Celtic weave. Now, at the beginning with the front side facing, we skip 2. Well, when you have the back side facing, we don't start off with skipping 2. We go ahead and we work back post treble in the first 2 stitches. Okay, that's very important. When the back side is facing, you always begin with those 2 back post treble crochets. And I'll go ahead and slow down for the next 2. After you do those first 2, then we skip 2, and then we work the next 2. For the back post treble, it's very similar to the front post, except we're coming in the back door and going out the side door, you might want to say. And we're still completing that treble crochet, but it's like giving it a belt, but from the back side. Okay. Now this, what I'm going to show you next, is probably the trickiest part of all. It doesn't have to be hard, but you do need to be careful where you put these stitches. Do you see where my finger is here? I'm going to show you, these are the 2 stitches that we're going to do next, but we come in from behind and we bring our hook around, and it's really important that you put this into proper place, and then we complete our treble crochet. And I'll do the other one. Coming around. I say this a lot whenever I teach this stitch. The stitch is easier to feel than it is to see when you're working with the back side. But I'm going to go ahead and flip it around and see what we did. This is what the front side looks like after we work those back post trebles. I'll work a few more with you so that you get a clearer picture of what this is supposed to look like. And it's quite all right if you give this a try and make mistakes here and there. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can just pull the yarn out and give it another try. Okay, now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, back post treble, and the next 2 stitches. See that there? Okay, now working in front of these 2 stitches as seen from the front side. So the needle actually goes in front of those from as seen from the front side. And then we're going to work these 2 that are kind of hidden in there. Okay, and then the next one. At least this is a lot easier to see since the yarn is thin. It's not real bulky and difficult to see. Okay, now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, back post treble, and the next 2 stitches. Okay, now working in front of these 2 stitches as seen from the front side. Okay, we're going to come and work the next 2, those 2 hidden treble crochets. Make sure as you go across that you are going to have 4 stitches for every time these stitches cross. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more with you. Skip the next 2 stitches, back post treble in the next 2 stitches. And by the way, this is mostly all that we're going to do for this scarf, and we will get to ribbing when we finish the scarf. But this Celtic weave is the main stitch that we're doing. So if this is a stitch you're not familiar with and you want to get a lot of practice with it, this will be a good project for you because you won't have the distraction of any other stitches. So go ahead, skip the next 2, back post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of these stitches as seen from the front side. So the needle goes right here. And yes, I do call my hook a needle, just to, for some of you who that may sound strange. We've been calling these needles long before the term hooking became popular. So I guess I'm kind of old school with that regards. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and finish this out with you. Skip the next 2, back post treble in the next 2. Working in front of these 2 as seen from the front side. Okay, go ahead. I'm trying to see if I can show you the best way to see this, but I really think you really have to get a feel for where these stitches are. All right, so now we have 2 stitches left here. This is really important. When you have the back side facing, make sure you don't forget these stitches or the scarf is not going to look so good. Okay, at the end, you have 2 more stitches. Just work 2 back post treble. After you make that last crossing of these other 4 stitches, you have 2 stitches left. You don't need to skip anything. Just go right to them, just like we did at the beginning. Just I'll show that to you just a second. And then we get to the end. Go ahead and work a double crochet right in that chain space. Okay, so we started out by not skipping. We have these 2 back post trebles. These are all back post trebles. And then we skip 2, and then these 2, and then these 2. Skip 2, these 2, and then these 2. Anyway, all the way across, and then we got to the end, and then we just did the very next 2 that were left. Just worked back post trebles, and then a double crochet in the end. And let me show you what this should look like. This is with the front side facing. You should see a lot of crossings or X's. Okay, so that's 3 rows. Let's go ahead and begin row 4, which is actually going to be the same as row 2, except it's going to be easier to see now because we've already got the Celtic weave established somewhat. Okay, we're going to always skip this first stitch, skip the next 2 stitches as well, and front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches, working in front of these 2 stitches, front post treble in those 2 post stitches that we skipped. Okay, now working and skipping these 2 stitches, skipping these 2 stitches here, front post treble in the next 2 stitches. I got a little disoriented myself there. Notice how the stitches are always going to be leaning this direction, these are the ones that you do first, and then after that you have these 2 stitches that are hiding right back in here, and we go ahead and again you can feel these better than you can see them. Go ahead and front post treble in those 2 skip stitches, and they are being worked in front of those 2 stitches that we worked first. Okay, skip the next 2 stitches, which are these 2 playing hide and seek back here, and then these 2 that are leaning towards the right. Go ahead and front post treble in them first. And one other thing, if I am going too fast for you, there's a little icon, a little gear, which is right about on the screen in this area. If you're watching the right-handed, it's about in this area. If you're watching the left-handed, and it looks like a little gear, and you just click it, and you can slow me way down if my stitch is just too fast for you. So feel free to do that. If it's too boring for you, I believe you can speed it up as well. So have fun with that. All right, so we're going to work in front of these 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble in these 2 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time for you. Skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, front post treble in the next 2, 1, 2, working in front of these 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we skipped. All right, so we're going to go ahead and work that all the way across. Now after I've worked that all the way across, I come to the turning chain and just work a double crochet there. Now let me show you something. With the front side facing, with the row that we just worked, okay, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these crosses. Okay, now let's go back to the row that we finished with the back side facing us. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crosses, but then if you have these 2 stitches here and these 2 stitches here, these were the first 2 we did without skipping, and then the last 2 we did without skipping. When you add those in, you know, that kind of represents that 7th cross. They're not crossed, but I just wanted to show you that the stitch count does remain the same. And so what's going to happen with these stitches that we worked at the beginning and at the end of that row, that was row 3, they kind of come up and come into the next woven section, and they're going to be kind of woven all the way through this. So the stitches in this pattern are literally woven and connected with one another, okay, which makes it kind of fun, I think. Okay, well, I'm going to start you on the next row, which would be row number 5, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this is going to be row number 5. And it starts the same way as row number 3 when you have the back side facing. Again, we don't use this first stitch, but we start with back post treble in the first 2 stitches. Skip the next 2 stitches, back post treble in the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to be working in front of these 2 stitches here, but as seen from the front side. So they're going to cross in front of that, and we're going to do these 2 stitches that we skipped. Now these are the 2 that are kind of hidden. Okay, they're very easy to forget, and you probably, if you do forget them and go on to the next one, you'll discover when you do the next row that you made a mistake. So at least if you do make a mistake in that, you're not going to have to rip out 10 rows. It's going to be more like 1 or a half a row to correct it, which isn't so bad. Okay, so I'm going to skip the next 2, back post treble, and the next 2 stitches. Working in front of these 2 stitches as seen from the front side. Again, using my fingers here to find those hidden stitches. Do each of those. The one furthest away first, and then the one closer second. Okay, let's go ahead and see what we have so far. So this is what you have after beginning the 5th row. You can see how these stitches are weaving in and out. So go ahead and finish that all the way across. Now we get to the last 2 stitches. We don't skip anything, we just go to those last 2 and we work those back post treble crochets. And then for the turning chain, we work a double crochet. Let's go ahead and take a look after 5 rows. And don't worry about this if it looks like it's curling a little bit. Don't worry about that right now, because when we connect it as an infinity scarf, a lot of that's going to leave. Okay, and you can always block it out if if that doesn't suffice. But anyway, so what we're going to do now for this point on is you're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 of the Celtic weave until the scarf reaches the desired size. I'm going to put the dimensions of the size I'm going for right there on the screen for you to see. So go ahead and just continue this stitch until the scarf reaches the right size. I have now completed 119 rows of the Celtic weave for my scarf, and the scarf does measure approximately 52 inches. So now it's time for us to join the ends. And as we do the join for these ends, we want to make sure that the front side of the scarf is facing itself. Okay, so the front sides, which is the part that's the Celtic weave here, this is obviously the back side. We're going to put those facing each other, and then we are going to slip stitch across to join these 2 ends. Okay, now I've got my strand ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and just chain 1. And we're going to have the original row in front of us, but that's not going to be a problem, and I'll show you how. Okay, we're just going to line up these stitch by stitch, and we go in through where the first stitch was crocheted, or actually it was the last stitch of the first row, but we're working in what is left of that turning, or the chain, the foundational chain, and then we're going to go into the first stitch of the last row that we worked. We pull that strand there, so we bring the yarn through, bring it through for these slip stitches, and go into the next stitch. And I'm going through both loops. Hopefully you can see that. Slip stitch. We're not wrapping the hook at all. And you want to be careful that we're lining these up as best we can. And so I'm going to do this all the way across the row. You want to be careful that it's not pulled too tight. That's the one danger about these slip stitches, is they can get to be really, really pulled tight, and you do want to try to guard it a little bit against that. Okay, so go ahead and finish that slip stitch all the way across. After finish working those slip stitches all the way across, just to let you know, I also worked one in those 2 turning chains at the end. Okay, now I want you to turn this right side out, and we're going to work with the right side facing from this point on. Now we are ready to work the ribbing trim that will be crocheted on both sides of the scarf. So I'm going to show you on this side. After I finish this, you're going to also do the same thing on the other side of the scarf with the front side facing. You'll just simply join with a slip stitch in the same area around here and continue doing exactly what I'm going to show you for this side. Okay, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to work 2 double crochets in each of the row ends. So you'll work 2 double crochets where that chain 3 is, and then 2 double crochets over that double crochet. Okay, so for every row ending, just work 2 double crochets. So go ahead and do this all the way around the scarf. At the end of this round, we're going to join with a slip stitch to the very first of the double crochets of the round. Okay, now we are not going to turn. We're just going to keep crocheting with the front side facing. And what I'm going to show you in this round, we're going to do 3 times. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to use a front post double crochet in the first 2 stitches. And now we're going to do a back post double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And we're going to work this all the way around. Front post and the next 2 stitches. And then back post double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So go ahead and work that all the way around. At the end of round 2, just join with a slip stitch to that first double crochet of the round, and just give you a little view of what you should have here. Now the next 2 rounds 3 and 4, are worked the same, so I'm just going to show you this one more time. It's the same thing that we did for round number 2. We chain 2, and then we're going to work 2 front post double crochets, and then 2 back post double crochets, and that's going to be your repeat all the way around. Make sure that as you work these, that you're working front post double crochets over front post, and that you're working back post double crochets over the back post. So go ahead and finish the next 2 rounds. At the end of the round, just join with a slip stitch. This is at the end of round 4. Okay, and then we're going to fasten off. Go ahead and give it a chain and give it a tug, and go ahead and clip a nice long strand there so that we can hide with our yarn needle. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that now, because you know how to finish the other side of this. Let me go ahead and give you the best possible view. Take your yarn needle and thread that loose strand, and I'm going to do this with the back side facing, and you can go ahead and run that extra strand down into those ribbing stitches just like that. It's a little tight because it's a thinner yarn and smaller hook. Okay, and then I'm going to run it up just a little bit, just to give it a little more security, because I don't want that strand to pop out. Okay, and give it a little tug there so that it's not too tight, and cut very carefully. Make sure that you do not cut your stitches, and you can see that stitch is well hidden. So now all we need to do, I'm going to show you the join, and I'm going to let that be it. We're going to join the yarn with a slip stitch. Okay, and one way you can do this is to form a starting slip knot just like that. Pull it through, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and go ahead and start by working 2 double crochets in that first row end, and then 2 in each row end all the way around, just like I just showed you on the other side. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to work the ribbing just like you did on this side, starting with 2 front posts, 2 back posts, and do that for 3 additional rounds. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds total, and the sides will match when you're done. Well, I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please hit that little bell. And if you haven't subscribed already, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe, and that way you won't miss any of the new offerings coming your way. God bless. Bye-bye.